LCSW Vibe Tribe. I want to say thank you for supporting me, for joining this channel, joining this journey. It's been so much fun. I'm meeting a lot of you guys in the community. A lot of you guys are jumping into the course. I'm able to do some coaching with you guys, and I must just say it has been an exciting ride. This is absolutely what I love to do. This is what I dreamed of, and it's all coming to fruition. So I'm really excited, and I wanted to start the video by saying that. So as you know, I'm Ariza Hillman, licensed clinical social worker, your test prep guru, your support system, your gang, your squad, your whatever you need to call me to help you get to the finish line of passing this exam. I've helped many people before you do the same thing, and I'm helping you do the same thing now with using strategy, mindset, and consistency. Yes, I'm changing a little bit. Consistency. I realize that when you're consistent at doing the same thing, you get the results that you're aiming for. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into today's training. And today's training is fire. I even got on my Whitney shirt. Yes, Whitney. You know, she was like one of the greatest of all time. So this training is going to go down as one of the greatest of all time, because we're talking about one topic and one topic only today, because the other stuff is going to break down if you work with me a little further in different levels. But this one right here, I wanted to give to my LCSW Vibe Tribe on YouTube specifically, so you guys can see a little bit of my teaching, how I'm able to break things down and help you understand some complex situations and circumstances as it pertains to the exam and simplify it for you. Also, why I'm doing this training is because I tell people in my coaching course, stay in the room. Let me break that down for you. A lot of times we're all over the place. So if you're cleaning your house, you might start in the living room, you might start in the kitchen, you might start in the bedroom. Some people do a little bit in each room. And to me, I don't know how they do it. I have to stay in one place, make sure that it's done, and then I can move on to the other spaces. So when I'm meeting with people and I'm talking to them and we're on these strategy calls, a lot of them are saying, oh, I study this, I study that, I use this course, I use that course, I follow this person on YouTube, I follow this person. It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's great. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of different options, but you got to sell out to just one. Yes, I'm not being endorsed by any fast food companies or any food agencies, so I'm not going to pick one, but there's one that got this little bird at the top, and I used to really like them. Like, if instead of going to Mickey D's, Burger King, and all these other places, is one that I gravitate to when I'm really hungry and I want something that is not so good for me, but I wanted to feel a urge, a need, a craving that I have. So we all have something that that are our favorites and that we go to. And that is what I want you to do when it comes to this test. I want you to focus on one thing that you feel really confident with using, one thing that's giving you what you need to, and don't switch from it. Some people are coming to me and they're like, hey, I already purchased the course, but I want to purchase your course. No need. If you purchased the course, it was a reason you did so. So stick with what you have, and I'm going to help you still make it work. That's it. I'm not trying to take your money. I'm trying to help you. That is all I'm trying to do, is help you get to the finish line. So that is what I wanted to tell you guys before I jump into this training. And also right now, you might want to pause the video. You might want to go get you a glass of water. You might want to get you your, I don't know, Kool-Aid, wine, whatever you drink, and maybe some chips, some dips, something, because this training is a little bit longer than normal. Normal, I'm breaking it down in 10, 15 minutes tops, but I need a little bit more time with you guys today. So I can't tell you this training is going to be over 15 minutes, and it's something where you want to take notes or you want to pause, make sure you process what I'm saying, and then resume. That is how we're going to do this thing. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. And in the process of me sharing my screen, I'm going to tell you what we're talking about today. Human development, baby. Yes, human development. We're staying in one part of the house. Some people call this the living room. Some people call it the kitchen. I don't care what you call it, but that is the part of the house that we're staying in. We're not focusing on all the other parts, because, you know, you got assessment, you got interventions, you got ethics. We'll focus on that another day. Today, we're talking about human development. All right, so let me jump right in. This is your complete guide to human development as it pertains to the sections on your LMSW and your LCSW exam. As you all know, there's a certain percentage, and I'm going to share with you, for the LMSW and the LCSW, and they're weighted differently per the exam. So why does human development matter? It's 28% of the LMSW exam. Whoa, baby, that's a lot. And it's 24% of the LCSW exam. One of the highest weighted areas on the exam is human development, guys. This section is foundational. That is why I use the house, because if you're in the house, you want to start with the basic foundation, and once you get that, then you can build upon it. So if you don't understand how people grow, how they develop, how they change, it's hard to be effective as a social worker and provide the services they need in the appropriate interventions. Also, this is one of the areas where they love to slip in application-based questions. They look simple, but they test a deeper reasoning. Missing this section can cost you the whole exam. Absolutely. Think about it. 24%, 28%. If you don't know the human development exam, it's almost impossible to pass unless you're 100% solid in other areas. And I haven't seen that happen yet. Make sure you know it. It can carry you across the finish line and get you the results that you need so you can be successful. So the LMSW versus the LCSW. Let's get this out the way first, because I'm doing this training for both of you guys, and both of you guys are also in my course and in my community. So I want to explain to you just a little bit of the difference between the exams so you can understand why I likely combine you guys when it comes to doing a lot of strategy, a lot of the coaching sessions, and so forth. The LMSW is knowledge-based. You need to know that knowledge. When it comes to the LCSW, they assume you already know the knowledge. You've already been through graduate school. You've probably been in supervision for a few years. You've been working through some things. So you have the knowledge. Now they want to make sure you can apply what you've learned. And that is the big difference between the LMSW and the LCSW exam. The LMSW is more focused on like the definitions, identifying stages, kind of understanding the theory. But when it comes to the LCSW, we're going to dig a little bit deeper. You're expected to be able to apply that theory to client cases, especially in a clinical or diagnostic situation or circumstance or scenario. Some examples here. The LMSW might ask what stage Erickson's industry versus inferiority shows up in, as the LCSW might ask what do a child or what would a child show? What kind of signs or symptoms would they show if they had low confidence in that specific stage? So industry versus inferiority, they're expecting you to be able to apply what you know about that stage into the given scenario. Are you getting what I'm putting down? I know you guys are, because y'all hella smart. So let's talk about the types of questions. We have the recall question, we have the reasoning question, and we have the application question. So the recall question is like, what stage comes after initiative versus guilt? And we say guilt, but it's normally listed as shame and doubt, but that's okay. That's another thing. And then also the reasoning. What is the best explanation for this behavior? What is the reason behind the behavior? And then what's the test is booming with, and those of you probably have not seen my video, because I don't think I dropped it yet, on the big changes that are coming in 2026. And most, if not all, or majority of the questions will be application based. So an application based question would say, what should the social worker do next? Yes, that is what it's asking. So recall is what we've memorized. Reasoning is about understanding what the question is really asking. And application, that's our gold standard, baby. That's how you show up as a clinician or a social worker and you act. You put into action, you do the job, you do what to do. Most questions will be either reasoning or application based. Less than 30% of the test is going to be straight recall. So let's just say 70% of the exam, which is pretty much all you need to pass and succeed, is going to be reasoning and application based. So you must know that. And I will tell you a majority of that is application based. So you need to know how to answer those questions that are first, best, next, and so forth. Are you studying for the LCSW or LMSW exam? Don't waste time on the wrong prep. Try my test prep program for free with a full module that gives you the real strategies, the real practice, and real results. Plus, you get access to my exclusive test prep community where you'll find support, study material, and accountability. No risk, no stress, just results. Click the link in the bio so you can get ready to win with the winning team. And if you guys join the community, yes, that's my plug. If you join the community, I actually have in the learning section a free training on application-based questions. I only threw it down for my community members because they've taken the next step. You follow me here on YouTube, you getting all the juice, you getting all the sauce, you learning stuff, you passing your tests or passing your quizzes or whatever you're doing. But some people say, you know what, I want a little bit more of the girl. I want to see what she's throwing down in the community. So they've taken the next step and they've joined the community. So with that, I've thrown in some extra free trainings. I even threw in a few modules of my course so you can test it out and see if it's really worth making that investment and jumping in there. So without further ado, let's talk about the core theories you need to know when it comes to this exam. Erikson. Yes, your boy Erikson. I have a whole training on Erikson, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on any of these because if you've been following me for a while, you know I've talked about Erikson, I've talked about Piaget, I've talked about Freud, we talked about Maslow, attachment, all this stuff up in here I have done a separate training on. So I'm not going to go into depth, but I want you to understand the core theories that you must know when it comes to this exam. So Erikson, psychosocial conflicts. He talks about what happens from birth to death, and you have to know these stages, and you have to know what ages, stages and ages. That's what you need to focus on when it comes to Erikson, because there's certain conflicts that we deal with at each stage of development. And then you have Piaget. These are those cognitive milestones. You go for the sensory motor, formal operation. You know, I like to use the example of kids when they first start. You ever watched a child maybe, you know, a few months old, a year or so, and you're playing with them and you do like peekaboo, peekaboo, and they're just laughing and they're like so excited. That's when they're learning about that object permanence. That's all in that Piaget. That's all in that Piaget stuff. But that's kind of when they see you and then they don't. They see you, then they don't. They see you, then they don't. All right, I'm not gonna play peekaboo with you guys, but you get it. That's why you have to understand these stages, and you can see how children reflect and how they act during these different stages. So that is why I like to use examples so you can really be able to apply it to everyday situations and circumstances. And then we have Freud. Yes, all that psychosexual stuff. We got the oral, the anal, and all that stuff that he dealt with. So it's easy to memorize his stuff because he has a lot of sexual things in his stages, or you can associate it with something sexual in his stages. And it's more foundational than frequently tested stuff when it comes to psychosexual stages. So when you're thinking about Freud and you're talking about the oral stage, this is where a child is learning to do things in the oral stage of development. So either they are breastfeeding, sucking a pacifier, sucking their thumb. They're doing something that gives them some type of oral gratification, and that is what they're learning how to soothe and so forth before they move on to the next stages of development. That's a whole nother training, and again, you can check it out at one of the links in this YouTube channel and learn more. All right, we got Kohlberg. He talks about moral development. You have to understand how children versus adults reason things. We are different stages in our moral development as we are at different ages. And certain things that a 6-year-old might think is appropriate or might be appropriate for their moral development is not going to be the same for a 60-year-old. So that's Kohlberg, and it's going to be broken down and you can kind of understand it. Of course, in my course, I have a whole section on all of these where it's in-depth slides and in addition to the slides, you have quizzes afterwards, so you're able to retain it and have little charts and all that fun stuff. So I'm not breaking it down here, but I want you to have an understanding. So if you're doing your own studying, you can know what Kohlberg discussed and about him. And then Maslow, yes, prioritization. This is where you learn the needs before your wants. Like, you can't get to certain levels in life if you haven't taken care of the basic foundations in your needs. So that is kind of Maslow's. And you also have a training, and you can look at the little chart, a little beautiful color chart that's also in the course. For you guys that are taking it, make sure you print it off and use it so you'll understand the different stages of Maslow, because it's a really good tool to utilize when you are studying, so that way you can actually learn how to apply it in different stages when you're working with a client. Because, for instance, if you have a client that's homeless, you can't start focusing on them getting to self-actualization when they don't even have their basic needs met. So that's pretty much Maslow in a nutshell. All right, attachment, secure versus insecure. This is really relevant when you're dealing with children and trauma, and this is something addition that we've done as well. Bandura, behavior through observation, think role models, and then we have the racial cultural identity. Another training was done on that as well. Understanding the stages and how oppression and identity impact your overall development. So these are the core theories that you want to know. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if you want to spend hours upon hours just studying this stuff. You just need to know what specifically is going to be discussed and needed for that stage. And you can write a little note card or something, write down little key points, and just keep it moving. Keep it moving. That's all. All right, so Piaget, what to know? 4 stages. Sensory motor, peekaboo, I use that example. Pre-operational, that's that magical thinking. That's when maybe the child is having like an imaginary friend, things of that nature. Concrete, this is math, logic. Kids are learning their multiplication tables, 2 times 4, 3 times 3, all of that stuff. And they're conservative of the matter that they are learning and how it's being done. And then you have formal, that's the hypothetical thinking and abstract ideas. So this is pretty much how we think. We're able to really take it a step further. We're not just looking at things from a imaginary standpoint or learning how to apply logic. Here, we're dealing with true abstract ideas. So that is how Piaget walks you through the different stages of development, and you just need to know those 4. So some red flags when it comes to developmental delays. Like, we need to know what's normal and what we need to refer out to. So when you're in the human development section, they're going to give you some examples. Like if a child isn't speaking by 2, that's a red flag. Children are typically walking between 12 and 18 months. So if they give you an example and the child is 2 years old and they're not walking, that is a red flag. Milestones are critical for early intervention, and they often are tested in vignettes. They want to know, as a social worker, a licensed social worker, that you know when something isn't normal and when you need to refer the client out. So that is pretty much some of the things that you want to pick up and understand when it comes to the human development section. And you also want to know different cultural variations, because not only are there going to be clinical indicators that you must focus on, but there are also going to be some cultural things, because different cultures do different things. So you need to understand in that development process, is this something that is cultural, or is this something that's a red flag and needs to be referred out? So that is some things that you need to really focus on when you're dealing with the human development section and recognizing red flags and developmental delays. Cultural, trauma, and environment. So development doesn't happen in a vacuum. You have poverty, racism, trauma, family systems, all of that stuff can impact how a person grows and how they develop. So you make it a question about like a systemic factor that prevents, or not going to say prevents, but maybe creates a delay or an impact in that person's development. So these are the keys that you need to understand, the key terms and tools that you need to understand. You have to also be cautious of blaming language. Whenever there's an answer and it looks like the answer is blaming, you need to move away from that, because that's not something that they're wanting you, not something that they're testing you on or expecting to be one of the correct answers when they're testing you. They just want to make sure you understand that's not what we do as social workers. So you definitely want to be cautious of any blaming language. Always look for things that are strength-based and culturally aware. That is what we do as social workers. We're very culturally aware, but we're also very strength-based by nature. And then we also want to look at the trauma piece. Trauma can definitely impact development. Say, for instance, there's a 10-year-old with trust issues. It could reflect some early childhood trauma that they've experienced. That's why it's really important to understand like the attachment styles, because a lot of that stuff, the reason why people have insecure attachment or avoidant and all those things is because of something that's likely happened in their childhood that has caused some of these behaviors to take place. All right, so let's talk about how you answer some of these questions. All right, you want to read the full stem. So when you're reading a question, you want to read it in its entirety and look at the stem. What are they really asking? You want to spot the age indicators. So if they're like, Matthew is a 14-year-old boy, or Beth is a 6-year-old girl, or Timmy is a 2-year-old whatever, you kind of understand that those are the age indicators. So it's automatically helping you decide or look at certain stages because you know the age and what happens during that development stage. You also want to eliminate extremes. That's not what the exam is testing. The exam is really, guys, not trying to trick you up. Honestly, it really isn't. It really wants to test that you understand and that you're able to apply the information that you've learned through all your years of going to school, that you can finally apply it when it comes to something. And then you also want to think developmentally. What does a 2-year-old do versus a 12-year-old? There's a major difference there. So if the question is asking you something or telling you something, you can clearly look at the age and tell whether it's appropriate, whether it's extreme, or whether it's something that is just not right, it's a red flag. All those things are indicators. And you always want to choose the most client-centered answer. We're all about being client-centered when it comes to this exam. So those things that you want to be mindful of, make sure that you're client-centered. All right? So we want to watch for age clues. We want to eliminate emotionally charged or punitive responses. And we want to think like a developmental social worker. What does this person need right now based on their stage of development? All right, so here's some study strategies when it comes to this section. You have the theory chart or timeline, we have flashcards, we have vignettes, a lot of repetition and application based. That is all what's going to help you master the human development section. So regardless whether you decide to take my course or take another course, these are the things you want to look for so you can truly understand the strategy when it comes to this section. You also want to study in layers. You want to learn the theory, then you want to apply it. I'm really big on learning something and applying it. Learning something, explaining it. Learning something, testing yourself. Don't keep moving on, guys, until you have truly learned whatever it was that you set out to learn for that day or that moment during your study time. You also want to use charts so you can compare like Erikson, Piaget, Freud. A lot of you have hit me up in the comment section and I've sent you emails, or if you're in the chat, I've sent you messages, instant messages on the actual human development cheat sheet. So that is something that's still available for you. Most of the course members have taken advantage of that because it's already in there. But if not, if you're in the community, I can also send you a copy of the human development cheat sheet, which helps with all of these so you can put them side by side and really be able to dig deeper. And it's kind of like studying on the go. You might say, you know what, I'm just studying these people today. I'm studying Erikson, Piaget, Freud. I'm just studying them today. You can just print it all, bring it with you to work, or nails done, or getting your hair cut, whatever you're doing, and you can just study this information. All right. Practice questions is where you justify your answers. You don't just guess and move on. If you take a practice question, and we'll do some in a few, and you answer it, if you get the question wrong, don't get frustrated. This is part of the training. This is part of the learning. You go through the practice question and you go back and say, okay, why did I miss this? What was I thinking? What were they asking me in this question? Do I have an understanding of this content that is being questioned here? These are the things you want to ask yourself so you can better know how to move forward and how to handle things in the future. All right, now for those of you who decided to sit with me during this training, I do have a practice question pack and some case study breakdown sheets and all that stuff. So just join the community. When you join the community in the chat feature, I send you a personal chat message. Just respond there and say, hey, can you send me those practice question sheets or whatever it may be? I'll be more than happy to do it. All right, but let's jump into some questions. Let's do a recall application question. So we have a 13-year-old client exhibiting mood swings, questioning authority, and is deeply focused on their appearance and peer approval. Based on Erikson's theory, what developmental stage are they likely in? Identity versus role confusion, industry versus inferiority, intimacy versus isolation is what it should be. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. Where they at? All right, guys, you guys are correct. The answer is A, identity versus role confusion. And for me, this was a no-brainer because I'm looking at it right there and I know all the stages here, but I also understand that the child is 13. And during the age of 13, you're pretty much trying to figure out who you are, like who you're going to be, how you're going to function in society, what role are you going to play, all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes it can be confusing. And that is where you see some of the acting out. But definitely the identity here. They're questioning authority. They're focused on their appearance. They're worried about all the peer approval and all that stuff. That is because they're stuck at this stage where they're trying to identify with themselves and figure out who they are. So that is something that you want to look at and consider and understand. All right, so let's move on to another one. That was a recall application. Let's do a reasoning one. At what age does a child typically develop the concept of object permanence, and what Piagetian stage does this fall under? So when you look at the different stages, again, I read the question, but you can mute me, you can pause it, and you can answer it, and then we'll go through it. All right, A, 0 to 2 years old, sensory motor stage. B, 2 to 7 years old, pre-operational stage. C, 7 to 11 years old, concrete operational stage. Too many words. D, birth versus 6 months, Pre-conscious stage. So again, object permanence. I kind of gave you this example when I went over PAJ. I realized I skipped one of the other theorists, and I'm going to go back at the end of this. So just stick with me. Sorry about that. Got too excited and pushed forward on the slides. But yes, so if you understand these stages, we're talking about object permanence. So if you think about object permanence, I kind of gave you that example at the very, very beginning. And this is a child that falls into what age when they start developing that concept of object permanence? What are you going with? You got it. 0 to 2 years old. I gave the whole example of peekaboo. That is pretty much what is taking place, and that is the concept of object permanence. So I hope that is understandable for you guys and you're able to break it down and get it. All right, let's move on to application-based question. So here we go. Go ahead and read the question. I'll give you some time. All right, that was enough. Hopefully you paused it and read it. All right, so social work is working with a 6-year-old who is eager to complete classroom tasks, ask for feedback, and becomes visibly upset when they make a mistake. According to Erickson, what stage of development are they in? And what is the best way to support them? This is a twofold question. You're not likely to have all of that 2 parts in the question, but at least you'll have a better understanding, because here I need you to be able to identify the stage of development and then the best way to support them. All right, so we have A, industry versus inferiority, provide opportunities for skill building and praise effort. B, initiative versus guilt, allow them to lead all decisions. C, trust versus mistrust, build emotional safety through consistency. And D, autonomy versus shame and doubt, help them gain independence through free play. All right, so again, I have a training where I'm breaking these all down, so I'm not going to go into depth on this. But if you look at this, the child is 6. So if you know the different stages, you can have an understanding of what takes place for a 6-year-old. They're in the classroom, they ask for feedback, but they come really upset when they make a mistake. What are we likely to have going on here? We can rule out autonomy versus shame and doubt. We can rule out trust versus mistrust. We can rule out initiative versus guilt, but we're going to stick with industry versus inferiority. And I love the second part because it said, what is the best way to support them? We provide opportunities for them to build a skill and to praise them. Those are some really good ways that we can help them in that situation and circumstance. Because number one, it says allow them to lead all decisions. That's not possible. We can't allow a 6-year-old to lead all the decisions. So that part right there, we could just rule out. Trust versus mistrust, you normally have this as like the first stage of development when we're dealing with Erickson. So that's why I said we can rule that one out. And then autonomy versus shame and doubt, help them gain independence through free play. That's good, but here it's not about free play. And here they're talking about completing classroom tasks, asking for feedback, and so forth. So you can see how this is applicable to this situation and how you're able to apply what you know about these different stages of development in this situation, in this circumstance and scenario. All right, before I jump into the final thoughts, I'm going to go all the way back because I realized I did not go over Erickson in detail. So Erickson, you need to know the stages, ages, the core conflicts, and potential outcomes. So you must be able to pair the age with the conflict, like 18-month-olds, trust versus mistrust. And the reason it made me think about this because I didn't go over this slide and then the question kind of asked some of these things. All right, and then you also have apply. So if you're applying knowledge that you know about Erickson's stage of development, an example would be like a teenager who's struggling with identity. They may present with risk-taking, withdrawal, or self-exploration. We talked about that in the scenario when they're really trying to identify and figure out who they are. So that is something that you would need to know. That's the way you would apply what you know about Erickson into the scenario. So a sample question. A 5-year-old is having trouble completing tasks at school. What stage and what's the issue? It goes back to the same scenario and same question that we just finished addressing, and that is explaining what happens with the child at 5 years old as it pertains to Erickson. So that is why it's really important to understand the different core conflicts, the different stages, and the age group that's taking place in those stages, and what are the potential outcomes. So again, I appreciate you guys for staying through this training. You've got the knowledge, now you have to train your mindset. The confidence, consistency, and clarity, the 3 C's, is what you need to succeed. Remember, mastering in this section means you know yourself as a learner. You're able to apply how you handle your clients, how you work with people, how you do all those things in a general sense as a social worker as it pertains to the human development process. Remember also, this is not about being perfect. It's about being prepared. A lot of you get frustrated when you miss questions or you're not sure or something's confusing to you. It is okay. None of us are perfect. But just understand, continue to learn, and it's making you more prepared for the exam at hand. All right? And the last one, you now know some of the things they're going to test you on when it comes to human development. Now, how they'll test you, how you'll respond, all that good stuff is what you need to continue to study and what you need to continue to know. Remember, the rest is just repetition and belief. You need to believe that you got it, and you need to be repetitious in it. You need to constantly study, constantly go over information. And remember what I shared with you guys. Stay in the house. Don't go all over the house. Stay right there. If you're in the kitchen or the living room and that's your human development section, stay there. Master the concepts and the knowledge there. Once you finish and truly feel you're competent in that area, you study the quiz, you take the quizzes, and you're good to go. I hope this was hella helpful. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with a friend.